The following stories and recordings are taken from Skipco's Women Reflecting on Women project. This project centred around working in communities in Leeds to research and gather the stories of lesser-known working-class women who were involved in the fight for suffrage at the turn of the 20th century. The participants in the project learnt about Leeds women, looking at the social context of their lives, as well as thinking about whose stories have been told and preserved, what's been recorded or not been recorded, and what has changed or not changed over the last 100 years. Participants also explored their own heritage stories with the support of Skipco artists and librarians from the local and family history library. The project has involved learning heritage techniques and sharing the stories unearthed through visual arts, writing, and audio recordings. All of the work created will form an exhibition that will be exhibited in 2021. You will now hear recordings from 4 of the various community groups that were involved in the project, alongside introductions to the groups from Skipco oral historians Emily and Jessica and some of the artists who worked with each of the groups. It was deeply saddening to discover whilst compiling these clips that one of our own participants, Alistair Simpson, whose voice you will hear in the Caring Together clips, passed away in the summer of 2020. Alistair was a more recent admission to the Caring Together board as treasurer, embodying enthusiasm and diligence. Alistair will be sorely missed, but he remains immortalised in the recordings here. His work here stands as an important contribution to the Women Reflecting on Women project and will be referenced by generations to come as a lasting effort to capture the social history of Leeds.
The suffragettes were militant groups united by their belief that women deserved the right to vote. They gathered together, often in secret, sharing their ideals for a better, brighter and more positive future for women. Fast forward 112 years to South Leeds. Take away the militant aspect of suffrage, and you have our grandparents' support group. Their meetings may not be secret, but they are every bit as important as those historic gatherings. Like so many of last century's inspirational women of Leeds, these grandparents rely on each other to provide comfort and encouragement. Struggling with the harsh realities of raising young children as kinship carers, usually without any support from the authorities, this group has become a lifeline to many of its members. It was a privilege and pleasure to join them fortnightly and gain an insight into just how remarkable each and every one of them really is. We had fun exploring personal icons through the ages, using collage to create vibrant works of art commemorating dates of personal significance. After some persuasion, the group relented and allowed us to call them inspirational icons in their own right. That's when we moved on and began creating a decorative chest of drawers, the contents and the adornment all symbolic to each participant and the women who've inspired them through the years. The final work of art was our very own suffrage rally, all in miniature, of course. Inspired by the Denison sisters' miniature masterpieces on display at Abbey House, everybody made themselves in miniature, imagining who else they would like to rally alongside. Never before have Woodbine Lizzie, Florence Nightingale and Twiggy stood side by side and hand in hand. We've come a long way since suffrage, but we're not there yet.
The following set of recordings are taken from my time with the Grandparent Support Group. They feature reflections from Paula, Nicola, Sam, Yvonne, Jenny and Leslie. In this clip, Paula reflects on how she set up the Grandparent Support Group and how this has made a huge difference to her own life as well as her friends in the group.
The Grandparent Support Group is involved is grandparents who have took on the role of their grandchildren either through court, social services, and they've got on practically till they're 18 years of old, so we're just starting the role again of being parent carer. I'm Paula Ensley. I took on my granddaughter when she was 6 months old in 2013. Obviously it's a lonely place, you have a lot of stuff going on. I found it very lonely and I used to go to a special guardian support group in Leeds, which I found out about, and hearing all the stories of what social services did and didn't do, and I thought, right, I need to set up a group myself to help people who are just starting out or just that support. So in March 2016, I set a group up on the 13th of March 2016 called Grandparent Support Group. So we just meet weekly. We get funding for us to go out on trips. We get to take kids to pantomime at Christmas, after Christmas.
How did you actually go about finding different people of a similar circumstance to you to form a group?
Well, I met a lot of people in the group when I used to go in Leeds.
Yeah.
And what I did was, I went to a parenting class, which I thought was strange at my age, going through a 0 to 5 parenting class. And I met a girl called Louise, and we did finish the course together, which were absolutely amazing. And I was telling her about wanting to set up a group. So she got in touch with somebody else, or she was in a group with somebody else and mentioned me. And then I met 2 lovely people from Health for All who helped me set a group up. I got in touch with the schools, got in touch with the special guardianship team up at Colonel House in Leeds, and told them about I was setting up a group, and it went from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How have you found the group has been helpful in terms of your weekly life, even your daily life?
Yeah, it's helpful. Well, it gives me the satisfaction of helping others, bringing information to the group. Obviously, Jenny, the secretary, she did the funding, so it's down to me to get the transport and get where we're going to go, ask people what they want to do, and it's lovely just meeting up with the kids, having a chat day to day, see what's going off with their lives.
This recording features Nicola, who comments on how Paula has been an inspirational woman in her own life. Nicola also discusses her experience of living with dyslexia.
My name's Nicola Metcalf.
Yep.
I've come to the grandparents group, and this is where we're doing I can't remember what it's called.
Women reflecting on women.
And we've doing different things, and we've been doing little ornaments, and I put Paula as she inspires me, because she set the group up, and if it weren't for Paul, we won't all be here, and we wouldn't have all met. So, and me, from being a kid, I've had dyslexia. It's been hard, but you manage. I've gone to different things for help, and I found out green paper's better for dyslexia, but different colour paper is for different people. It used to affect me. I used to not tell people, but now I'm not bothered, because it is me. I'm not being awful, but if you don't like it, don't speak to me. That's my motto, you know. And I have full custody of my grandson.
With dyslexia, how do you think that it's changed from how it was perceived back in the day to now?
When I was a kid, we went to special schools, where nowadays doesn't matter if you're dyslexic, handicapped, Down syndrome, they include you in the class with, as they say, normal children, where when I was growing up they didn't. So people at home did find out that I went to special school, and we got picked on. We got, used to call spastic, and I don't like that word, but, and it did get to you, but it made me a stronger person.
How have you found the project so far?
It's great, interesting, yeah.
And what little things have you been making? Can you tell me more about your ornament?
It's a little ornament, and I've had to dress in clothes like Paula wears, and trousers and tops and a hair colour. And we've done the little boxes with different things in.
Can you tell me a little bit more about why Paula inspires you as an inspirational woman?
Because she's strong and she don't let anything get her down. You know, if she does, she doesn't show it.
Yeah.
You know, and then she does all this and does other things and then goes home and looks after her family.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's wonderful.
The following recording features Sam, who reflects on her experience of living with lupus. Sam also discusses her research on the suffragettes and how the project has given her an opportunity to showcase her woodwork skills.
My name's Sam. I'm 46 years old and I go to a grandparents group because I am bringing up 2 children who are my step-grandchildren.
And what makes you feel inspirational as a woman?
Me personally, about 15 years ago I was diagnosed with lupus, which is a critical illness and very unpredictable. However, over the years, I've done many battles with the illness, but still managed to take care of my 2 grandchildren.
Your experiences of and knowledge of women and suffrage, you told me a little bit about how you've watched a few films. Would you like to tell me more about your understanding of the way women's suffrage has been represented through media?
From my understanding is that there was quite a few women involved and they was fighting for women's rights and the right to vote. They did some extreme things to get attention, and the one I saw on TV that I watched was when they was imprisoned and they went on hunger strike and there was force fed. And I saw one about a rally and one got, was it horse riding? I think she got killed, didn't she? Yeah. So they were very interesting.
When you watch things about suffragettes in the past, how does it make you feel about where we are now? And do you think we've still got a way to go, or do you feel like we've progressed?
I think we've definitely progressed, but there's still somewhere to go in some aspects, definitely. But I think if it weren't for them, we'd probably still be like they were in them times. In regards to where we are now, I think we've still got some things we need to fight for as women, particularly equal pay. That's the big thing at the moment.
Your artwork, so you've been doing a little bit of artwork on this project. Can you tell me a little bit more about your skills in woodwork and how you've been able to bring them into the project?
Yeah, when we got custody of my step-grandchildren, I had to give up work, plus I was ill as well with my illness. But after a while I got pretty bored. So my husband was a builder anyway, so we always had wood lying about. So I just started making things out of wood and it just progressed, and then I put it online and then I started making things to order. So when this project came up, because I've not been able to attend many of the groups because of other things going on, I decided to make a bandstand out of wood for the art project bit and some trees. And so that's my contribution.
How did you do it? You told me a little bit about how you had to Google something.
Yeah, so the brief was a bandstand from Holbeck Moor, 1908. So I googled that and it gave me a few pictures of bandstands, but there weren't any really that was really clear. They were all surrounded by trees or people or whatever. But I did find one eventually, which I just printed off, and I've based my woodworking on that. I think this project with Skipco has been brilliant, especially for me because I'm quite artistic anyway, so I like doing stuff like that. But not only that, I've been able to help other women in the group because some are not very artistic, but they actually love it now, so that's really good.
In this reflection, Yvonne discusses her research, which links the past struggle of women's mental health to the modern day. She also comments on why she feels inspirational as a woman by setting up her own darts team.
My name is Yvonne Ward. My connection to the group is that I'm a member of the grandparents group, and we got asked if we would join Skipco for the for celebrating the 100 years of women, and are we there yet? And I've really enjoyed it, to be honest. It's been an eye-opener. I've been looking at quite a lot of things, but my main interest is the mental health side of things changed for women, and it don't seem to have changed very much at all, really.
So what did you find was the way that they treated women with mental health in the past?
Well, every part of mental health concerned with women was classed as hysteria, and normal treatment for that was said they won't get enough sex and things like that, and which nowadays is, we all know that it's not that. It's life, how you treat as a child, as an adult, with your partner, every aspect of life as a step into your mental health and how you feel. I think it's just set. They don't have no set boundaries. That my daughter's got paranoid schizophrenia. She gets sectioned, put into an hospital for mental health, and she can come and go as she pleases. So she's not protecting herself or anybody else. She just walks in and out as if it's an hostel, and it's not. It's a hospital.
Yeah. Well, do you think there's anything that has been more positive about mental health as well? Any changes that seem more positive?
No.
What makes you feel inspirational as a woman in 2020?
Well, as a grandmother of 14 grandchildren and a mother of 5, one of the grandchildren live with me full time. I've had to step up because I struggle a little bit with mental health, and I've had to put that to one side, get myself well, and look after this little boy that's adorable, and it's working. I feel really well with myself now, and it's helped me tremendously.
Brilliant. How has the project influenced your attitudes to campaigning when you've seen maybe some of the suffragettes and thought about suffragettes? Has it influenced you in any way?
I've always been a campaigner where women's rights are. When we were younger, women weren't allowed to go in certain rooms in pubs, and I got myself in. I started a darts team, ladies darts team in a man's world, and we got some rights, but we stuck to it, and it now women's leagues and they play first class darts and stuff, so which I think is a good thing.
In this clip, Jenny reflects on her experience of working with children in India. She relates this experience to her project research about the NHS guidance which was once given to parents to support their children. Jenny then considers how there are still some changes that are required to support children and kinship carers today.
My name is Jenny, and I'm 63, nearly 64 years old. I belong to a grandparent support group, which is for kinship carers or kinship grandparents who are looking after their grandchildren full time. We have one boy who we've had since he was 5. He's now 14. I trained as a nurse and worked in the NHS for 25 years before this. I've taken retirement now. But before that, I'd actually worked, took a job in South India, where I belonged to a church and was quite involved with the church when I was younger. I felt that I wanted to do something abroad, and that's something church orientated. And there was a school that we'd heard about that was a Christian school that was based in India and was there for pupils or children of missionaries initially. They did have, in the end, children that were children of business people. But mainly for those who'd gone out to do missionary work of some sort all over India, and it was actually easier for them to have the children within India than to send them home to England. Yeah. They also sat the English curriculum and exams. We did have some Indian children locally, but they could only go up to a certain age because the government wouldn't let them sit the English exam, so that it wouldn't have been fair to them. Anyway, so I thought about it and decided that it was something I wanted to go for, but I went as a house parent because I wasn't a teacher. I'd done dental nursing before that. So I went with the view to looking after the children when they weren't in school, which was good. It all happened very quickly. I think I had an interview in November and I left at the beginning of February the next year, so it was all quite quick. And I do have to say, when I got on the plane to go, if I could have opened the doors on the plane, I probably would have come back again. Yeah. We could sign up for any period of time, which was a year up to 4 years, but I decided to do 4 years because I thought children need continuity and that it would be important to stay for the 4 years. Then we had to come home and have we could have gone back, maybe have 6 months at home and then go back if we wanted. I did come home after 18 months. The church I belonged to paid for me to come back for 2 or 3 weeks, which was lovely. So when I got there, I was looking after sort of the management of the home, really. And making sure that the kids were clean and healthy, and there was a cook and everything, so I didn't have to do that, which was good just as well. And then I used to sort out the uniform and everything like that. But when I got there and I spoke, I put on my application form that I enjoyed sports and I like sports. So I got roped into teaching sports somehow, which really didn't, I mean, it worked, but we did cross country and volleyball and all these sort of things, and I had to sort of read up. I wasn't the only one, there was someone else who was a teacher in sports, but I helped out. So I had to learn the rules of various things quite quickly. But teaching was never for me, really. It didn't really work, but it was what it was. And, the kids probably told me more than anything else.
And how do you think that you influenced the children out there? How do you think you helped them?
Right. Initially, I'd say that actually I don't think I influenced them. I think they influenced me. I expected them to be naive. I expected them not to be worldly. And actually, I was completely and utterly wrong. They were fully on the ball of what was happening at the time. This was sort of like 30 years ago now. And they were up to date with the music. They were up to date with what was going on in the world, drugs, you name it. They knew all about it. I was the naive one. So I think they influenced me, and they taught me a lot. But I would say, I think just being, hopefully I brought to them fairness, and we used to do activities and take them to places around. So we gave them, or I felt I gave them a little bit of home. The room I stayed in, that I had like a lounge and then a bedroom area. I mean, it's very basic. But they used to come in of an evening and we'd have hot chocolate or whatever and all that sort of thing. And there'd be a fire because we were up in which was another thing I hadn't really thought of. Just as well I took some warm jumpers because we were up in the hills. Yeah. And actually it did get quite wet and quite cold. So, so things like that, I think, and them able to talk to me, and someone being there and being constant, and not someone changing every sort of 6 months or a year or whatever. Formed quite a few relationships with some of them. Some of them didn't want to be there and were a bit rebellious, but they knew they didn't have an option really, so they put up with it. And some of them just embraced the whole thing, which is very similar to kids these days anyway. So hopefully I taught them a lot or showed them the way to be or the way to go. But I have to say, I think I probably learnt more in that time from the experience than maybe I gave to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what are the main things that you remember from India and
Oh,
that you kind of carry with you today?
I think one of the things was how friendly the people were, different cultures, and that was a big learning curve as well. And the tolerance, I think, that they had as a culture. One of the things that stands out in my mind, because we did a lot of travelling around to where the children's parents were working, and saw what they were doing. But it was the thing of everyone lived side by side and they weren't bothered particularly by it. So you'd have those that didn't have a home, I suppose you'd call them beggars really, and those that lived in makeshift tents with plastic and stuff. Then you'd have the very simple sort of one room that catered for 6 or 7 kids and mum and dad and aunt and uncle and whoever, up to mansions really. But they lived side by side, which I found very strange initially. But the tolerance that was there of each other, and I found out fairly quickly that part of that was because of what they believed, particularly the Hindus with reincarnation. So because they felt that someone who was living on the streets could well have the spirit of one of their ancestors. So yeah. So
how have you found the work with Skipco and Women Reflecting on Women?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. Because my background is nursing, when we went to the library, I think one of the things I found was a programme that was set up in the 1900s, early 1900s, about 1909 or something, I think, for children who, or for parents who were expecting or up to a year old, and giving them advice on how to look after the children, and when they were born, how to look after them, how to look after themselves. There was also support with financially a little bit, and clothes and food. And I think from that has really had a bit of an impact, because I was thinking about it related to what we're doing now, and what there is in the NHS or wherever about how to show people how to look after their kids. But we're seeing it firsthand with our kids' parents or mother who hasn't had the ability to look after their children, and that's why they've lost them. So the connection was really quite poignant to me. And I think also I then started to look a bit further along and how things were improved or seemed to be improving. But what I would say is that hasn't, we're still in the position today in some respects with food banks, clothes banks, and people not managing to look after their children. So how much have things actually improved? Yeah. So from that point of view, and we've done quite a lot with Skipco over the last couple of years, and I've always enjoyed it. And the craft sessions that we're doing, I'll have a go at almost anything. I'm not particularly crafty, or I'll have the ideas, but I can't actually put them into action. So it's been quite good, really, having a go at all that as well.
How have you found the grandparent support group as a guidance or help?
Yeah, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I think one of the things with kinship care that I've come to find is that it isn't fair across the board. When my husband and I went through the courts to have Tyler, we could either have gone the special guardianship route or what we've got, which is a residency order. Kingship fostering wasn't on the board at all, which we would have gone with that if we'd known. So there are three main sort of court orders that you can get. Now, we had one visit after the court date, and then that was it. We had no more input from social services. They closed the case, did say we could contact them if we had problems, which we didn't do. 5 years went by, and we soon realised that he had major issues because of the trauma that he'd suffered. Someone was helping us from the primary school he was in, and said that this new group had been set up, and Paula had set this up. So now group things are not usually my cup of tea, but I thought, well, I can't really not go because I've been asked to go, and if they're trying to do what's best for us, I've got to give it a go. Well, within that week and the following week, the stuff that I learned about kingship care was like, I hadn't even heard of half of it. Social services hadn't told us any of it. There was about 7 or 8 people, and we'd all got different stories of how we've been treated. And that continues today, unfortunately, which is 4.5 years on. So it's been really good for me, because what it's done, it's helped me in some ways to help Tyler and his behaviour and so on, and to understand it maybe a little bit more, get involved with some teaching sessions about it so that you've got that backup. But I think the biggest thing that it's done for me is open doors to try and make things better for the future. And that's my biggest aim, is that, because I don't think anything will change for us and our children, but hopefully we can get it to be right for those coming further, down the line. So yeah, and that means that it's opened up the door to talking to child services, getting involved with teaching programs, and giving our side of the story and what it is like to be a kingship carer, and the issues that you have. And then the latest thing is with Grandparents Plus, which is a national organisation, getting involved with national papers. I was asked to go on Sky News as well at one point, but that didn't happen because they couldn't get anyone to come up to Leeds, so they chose someone in London. But it's opening those sort of opportunities, because they're lobbying the government that things need to change, and we need to be recognised, not only grandparents but aunts, uncles, siblings, and even friends of families, and we need to be recognised for what we're doing, the same as kingship fostering, which is not the same as fostering, but it is, except for the person fostering is a kingship, so grandparent or whoever. Yeah. But they get, it's just, there's a lot of things that are just not the same across the board, and it should be. We're all doing the same job, and it shouldn't matter whether the children were in care at all or had one night stay with a foster parent or anything, which entitles them to and opens doors for a lot of other things. And if they haven't, then the doors are closed. Yeah. So that's not only to us to help us, but also the children suffer from it as well. Yeah.
This final recording features Leslie, who was the first female bouncer in Leeds. Leslie then goes on to describe a woman she feels connected to from her own research, known as Woodbine Lizzie.
Hi, my name is Leslie Fowler. I was the first female bouncer or door staff supervisor in Leeds to be registered with the police and Leeds City Council. I think that was in the early 1990s. My door badge was number 10, and now I know that it goes into thousands and thousands. And what it was is I was in a bar in Leeds, in Leeds City Square. I can't recall the name at the moment, but I was talking to door staff and the manager and that, and they said, well, why aren't there no female on the doors, why is it just men? And they said, well, if you can do the job as good as the man, right, just give it a try and then we'll take you on. So for a few weeks I was like observing, helping and things like that. And then what it is the pub landlord, the other guys that I worked with, they saw a potential in me, and then I was paid a wage in pubs and clubs, and then Leeds City Council came in to say all door staff have got to be registered with the police and council, because there were a lot of door staff hitting first, asking questions after, whereas you ask questions first and then try to resolve the situation. Because I was the first female door staff, I think I inspired other women to become door staff, because when you go into a pub or a club or wherever, you might go drinking, dancing or anything, it's a male and a female clientele. If there's any trouble or anything, or there's arguments, because there's men and women there, it's nice for a female door staff to be present, because some women, if they're fighting and a man tries to split them up, they could be touching them in an inappropriate way, and then have a sexual assault charge given to them. While I was on the doors, I came across a lot of things, some comical, some not, some serious. I've actually saved 2 people's lives with CPR and medical attention. One was a drugs overdose and one was a serious assault. In one place where I worked, I had to wear a stab vest, because the violence was well known in Leeds for certain gangs to go around certain pubs to cause trouble or intimidate people because of they were selling drugs and things. I've confiscated a knife and a gun off men when I've searched them for other things. I've done lots of things, but I've also been assaulted by men and women, but I know how to handle myself. I know how to talk myself out of a situation rather than cause to fight, argue or anything. I know how to disarm somebody if they're coming toward me with a knife or a bottle or any weapon.
There were some newspaper reports. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about those?
Yes, I was interviewed by Yorkshire Evening Post, women doing men's jobs. I was interviewed on just a typical night, being a door staff. Also, I was interviewed for the big issue as well, women doing men's jobs. But now you can't say, oh, that woman's doing a man's job now, because it's sexist. So it's that's why they're called door supervisors. You can't say doorman.
Yeah. How does it make you feel to see how that change has gone from when you first started out to where we are now with door staff?
I see that I've encouraged or had a saying that women should be on the doors. What it is, sometimes when we go into pubs and clubs now and there's female door staff there, they don't realise that I was the first female door staff until I've actually said, oh, I used to work the doors, I was the first female. And I said, oh, we were wondering when women came on the doors and things like that, because it was always a man's world. So it's I'm glad that women have followed suit.
And on another note, with Skipco, how have you found the project? What have you enjoyed about it? And have you found any research that you've particularly enjoyed, or wanted to find out more about different inspirational women in Leeds.
When I was a little girl, my dad always was going on about someone called Woodbine Lizzie, and I didn't know who Woodbine Lizzie was. It was just to say, no, if you start smoking and you don't stop smoking and that, you're going to land up like Woodbine Lizzie and things like that. I found out a few months ago by reading a book on Leeds that Woodbine Lizzie was actually a person that lived in Leeds. She was a vagabond. Her real name was Alice Porter, and she had 5 or 6 children. And what it is obviously, I think her marriage broke down and she had mental health problems, and she decided to give all that up and become a vagabond in Leeds. Well, she was well known standing outside the Whip Hotel in Leeds, which was only men only, and she'd be always cadging cigarettes, Woodbine cigarettes, hence the name Woodbine Lizzie. So, and she couldn't go in the bar because obviously it was just men only. So she used to stand outside with a pint of beer, also smoked sometimes a pipe. But mainly she was always asking people for cigarettes. That's why she's Woodbine Lizzie. Unfortunately, she died in a mental hospital some years ago. But she was a well-known character in Leeds, and because she used to stand outside the bars, it gave me an inspiration, whereas I used to work on the doors, so it's like we used to get all sorts of characters coming in. I'm glad that I inspired other women to work on doors, but also Woodbine Lizzie, she inspired me to look up on a story. I really enjoy Skipco because what it is it helps me a lot, because it's like years ago when I was at school and everything, we used to do arts and crafts and things like that. But now that I'm a mum, a grandparent, I'm bringing up my grandchildren and everything. It's like you forget all about that. And it's nice, to do things. It's like I'm making little models of myself when I used to work the doors, and a Leeds character, Alice Porter, also known as Woodbine Lizzie. So, and it's nice to bring them two characters together because we've got a lot in common.
Yeah.
Because it's even though she stood outside the doors of pubs and everything, and I've worked the pubs and clubs, it's just so nice. But mental health and everything can affect anybody. It's she's a character, but there's a story there. But it can be a good story, and it can be a sad story. Same as mine. It's I've come across a lot of violence on the doors, in the pubs and the clubs and things like that. But I've also met thousands of genuine, really nice people.
Yeah.
It's even now people, it's they come up and say, "Hello, Leslie," and I'm going, "Hi, you alright?" I'm thinking, where do I know these people from? And it's they remember me from when I worked on bars and everything. It's other night I was in bingo, and this woman always says hello to me. "Hiya, Leslie." I'm thinking, how does she know me? And this is going back for the late 90s. And she says, "I remember when you used to work at O'Reilly's in Leeds, and do you know what I mean?" And she says, "I don't know if you remember, but I met my husband there, and you introduced us to us, and we're still married." And I'm thinking, oh wow, that's nice. And he was there at the bingo. So, and it is nice when people say hello to you and you're thinking, oh, where do I know them from? And then when they say, oh, I used to work at certain bars and things like that, and you looked after me and I could come and talk to you and things like that. And it's so nice that people can remember. Yeah. It's a shame that I couldn't remember, because it's I can remember certain ones, because you meet thousands and thousands of people, but you can't remember every single one of them.
No,
so it's
of
nice that
course
someone remembers me.
Yeah, and then they can trigger your memory as well.
It does, but and everything. But it was nice that when I was speaking to this lady, and she says that through me she met her husband and I introduced them and things like that. It's nice because it's like coming to Skipco as well. It's like because we were doing like work on women who give us inspiration, and it's nice for them to know that I've given other women inspiration, and it's just brought back memories. It's like as you get older you put memories at back of your mind and things like that, and then all of a sudden it just someone wants to talk about something, but oh yeah, I did this, and oh I've done that, and can we talk about this?
You are about to hear a collection of recordings from members of the Cushy Dill Women's Group. The members of Cushy Dill, which translates into Happy Heart, regularly take part in activities including healthy cooking sessions from different cultures, arts and crafts, as well as exercise sessions and classes like walking or Zumba. The group really increases the ladies' confidence and self-esteem and helps them to access services they might not know are available to them, such as health checks, childcare, and more. The group is mainly for Bangladeshi women, but as more people in the group bring their friends, there are more and more women coming to their sessions in Beeston who aren't necessarily Bangladeshi.
It was a pleasure to work with the ladies at Cushy Dill, and once they discovered that the suffragette Mary Gawthorpe had actually lived in Beeston, their own neighbourhood, they were keen to find out more. They made connections with Mary Gawthorpe's life and their own lives, and amongst the discoveries at the library sessions, they identified the street she'd lived in and the school she taught at. One mum had a son at the same school, albeit a modern rebuild of the building, but she was so inspired to research and document this further and her direct connection with her own family, she took photos of the location and chatted with members of staff at the school. Mary Gawthorpe was central to the group's finished collection of work. A fascination for old maps, houses and street signs in the local area inspired the artwork. With some group members being prolific embroiderers and skilled seamstresses, the sessions were a hive of activity. Many talents emerged through our creative artworks, and it was lovely to see the group supporting one another and sharing their skills freely. Our mannequin, affectionately known as Mary, became a regular attender at the sessions, and the artwork created quickly became centred around her. A textile map of Beeston was whizzed up on the sewing machine to create her a skirt. Printed textile street signs and exquisitely adorned houses sit proudly as pockets upon her apron, complete with hidden snippets of stories on silk hankies, stories which drew parallels between the group's own life, moving to Leeds from Bangladesh, growing up in Beeston, and connections with Mary Gawthorpe, the suffragette.
In the first piece of audio with participants from the Cushy Dill group, Ambia and Safal talk about the project and the research they conducted on Beeston. They both recall how Beeston has changed, their memories growing up in Beeston, and their roles within the family and as parents.
I'm Ambia, and I've got 5 kids, and one goes to college, one goes to high school, 3 at primary school.
Hi, I'm Safal. I've got 5 kids as well. 1 girl, 4 boys, and 1 has newly been diagnosed with autism.
Well, started off obviously doing research about Mary Gawthorpe, and then we went to the library first, didn't we? And we were looking on the, you know, like in the archives and stuff, and seeing, you know, like who lived in our house all the way back in the 1900s, yeah, about over 100 years ago. And when our houses got built and who was there, and it told us what their jobs were as well. And the jobs, and I found it quite interesting. I was looking at all, because I lived at a couple of houses and I looked at them all. They are old houses. Hers,
I think some so my house that I live in at the moment, it's only a 10-year-old house, so my house was not on the map, but houses that I've lived in previously, they were all in the map, and it showed who was there, and like now I live quite close to where Mary Gawthorpe used to live. That's where she used to live.
So Fulham Street is where our children go. The primary scheme is just literally opposite street.
She teach here?
She was doing things with the kids and making,
because she taught at the Beeston Hill.
Oh, no, St. Luke's. Yes, St. Luke's,
yeah.
So like I said, I pass Fulham Street every day because I have to go through there to drop my kids off. But the house is newly built, so it's not all. But the street is there, the name. But the new house is there. But you know, like I went to one of my son's. It was an open morning, and they were doing about maps. So it sort of like got back what we were doing, and then they were looking at 1952 map and everything. And I go to them, but I'm doing about this as well, about this, and they were relating about Beeston and what they're doing. So it was quite, you know, it's like, oh, that's quite interesting. And then then my son came over with pictures of old Beeston, and I was looking at them, and then I do research on the phone and look at how Beeston was way back then when they had trams. Why can't we have trams now? It's, you know, then when I was looking at some of the shops, do you remember that old post office on Trentham Street where Hussein's hairdressers and one behind it?
Well, a lot of the stuff's changed now.
Everything's
so different. Yeah, like all the supermarkets, everything's different. We've seen a big change from when we was.
Because I was born obviously here. She came with us, yeah. So it is a big change, and it's like, wow, what you want. Do you remember that shop, Cohen's? We used to get our clothes from there, our school clothes, our all clothes, everything. Yeah, that's gone now. That was quite a good shop. I did like that, but it was on the map. It's, you know, in the black and white pictures, and I went, oh right, okay. Yeah, Beeston Hill, where Mary Gotha sort of like taught at St. Luke's, is just down at bottom, and that's just further up at top. Everything is different now.
I think some things might be a little bit similar. So even though she was young and she had responsibilities, our generation when we was young, we still had like responsibilities as well, like within the home, things like that. I think kids these days, their responsibility is probably totally different, but I think we have like the best of both worlds. So we have a bit of experience of some of the stuff that Mary Gawthorpe did, but we're in the modern age as well. So, like, our kids probably haven't got a clue about stuff we did when we were younger because they just don't do it. There's so much technology now. They're not interested. Like, we used to go out and play pegs. And
we did. We was out in that street till about 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. And back then, we didn't, because there was no internet, no nothing, we didn't hear anything about murders, burglaries, anything like that. We used to just play. And then we were called in, won't we? Come and get some washing done and come and get the do the cooking and stuff.
Yeah, we used to cook when we were like 8-9 years old.
Yeah.
So we did do a lot, as in when we was young, we did do a lot of stuff.
We helped our mums especially, but then when we were playing out, like, we used to actually play a lot. Whereas now it's all just technology out there.
I would say we, like, not all women, but majority of women, like, I do the cooking, the cleaning, running around after the kids. So when we were young, our dads did it. They would take the kids to school, but now I take my kids to school. I pick them up, take them to mosque, pick them up, do the shopping. And when we was young, our dads used it. Our dads would pay the bills, they would do the shopping. So I think the role has changed a bit. We do a lot more. Well, now in my household, I definitely do. I definitely do a lot more as well. So, like, I think in Mary Gawthorpe days, I think she was probably like a bit of a strong woman. That's probably why she did some of the stuff. She fought quite a lot. She was with the suffragettes. But these days, there's not so much fighting because we've got the vote and things like that. But I do feel we do a lot more. I think the stage that we're in life, we think more about our kids rather than ourselves. Because when we were growing up, when we grew up, we didn't have to fight for the vote, and to be honest, we don't get into politics as much. You just go and you vote for whoever you want to vote for, and whatever happens, and you know, you just deal with it, don't you? But if anything, I think we think more about our kids and their safety and where they're heading. The world is a lot, I think for children, things like mental health, things like that is a lot more harder for them. As when we was younger, there was no such thing. Or like bullying was really minimal, and now I won't call it bullying, it's called murdering. So you know, you're a bit afraid to let your kids go out and play sometimes because it's like, well, you know, what if somebody comes along and they get into a small little argument?
And it's not just that as well, it might be the impact of what other children are doing. And they might be there and then they don't get involved and then the name gets pulled out and then they might want to go and do it afterwards, and then you just think, okay, because there are a lot of children out there that do certain things.
And there's like a lot of drugs, and I think social media, I'm a little bit more backwards, so I don't use a lot of social media, and I think it's better that way, because I think when you go on social media you look at likes, and if you don't get enough likes, I think it affects children, adults as well, and I think that is something maybe the government need to look at. We don't worry about so much ourselves, but like with my son, with him newly being diagnosed with autism, so when we were younger, that probably wasn't heard of. It was very, very rare, or if it was probably pushed under the carpet. And now it's quite common, but still to get the help, it takes absolutely ages for your child to be diagnosed, and then when they are diagnosed, you still have to run around. Like I have to go to Central Library tomorrow to go to some sort of workshop just so that I can get a little bit more information to try and help him and stuff. Once they're diagnosed, you can't go back to them people anymore for help. You've got to look.
But whereas, you know, in my mother's, I don't think there was much. If there was, there wasn't heard about mental health or anything. There wasn't much about health. It wasn't about health. It was more about where they're going to get the money from, how they're going to feed us, clothe us. It wasn't that great as well, because obviously there wasn't much work out there. And English, for us, English is, you know, for our parents, because they don't have English, is quite limited for them as well. And whereas we got that, we can speak English, we can, you know, like move forward, we can do our things. Like back then, if they had to go to doctors, I'm sure they had to go and get someone that can speak English, whereas we do take our mothers now.
I think for us as well, I would say it's more harder because we don't just have our children to deal with, we've got our parents to deal with. So we've got to take them to appointments. Like when I was 16, I used to help my mum nurse my dad because he had dementia, things like that. So for like a 15-year-old to try and understand dementia, you know, all we thought of is just trying and helping my mum as much as possible. And then obviously he passed away when I was 16. Then I had to take the role on, because I was one of the eldest, I had to take the role on becoming the breadwinner, and I didn't think about education. I thought, you know what, who's going to help my mum? She can't go out and get a job. I've still got lots of younger brothers and sisters. The youngest sibling was 1 year old, so we've had to grow up because our parents, they wouldn't be able to do it on their own because they can't speak English and stuff. So for us, I think in that way, it's hard because you're too busy running around with your family, running around with your kids, and you don't think about yourself, you always put yourself last.
See, like our mothers never went out when they were, you know, because they
probably just went to like Ashers.
Yeah.
Asher to do a little bit of sewing courses, English courses, and that's about it.
The Asher Centre, and there was Tunstall Road as
Asher
well.
Neighbourhood Project, it's called.
Yeah.
So like when I was 16, me and Tamina, we ran the play scheme. So we were like responsible for 30 little children, and oh my God, when you think about getting on the bus and taking them on trips, and we were only 16, we were like kids looking after kids. But we did it. It was like one of our first jobs that we did. Because I used to work in Morrison's as well. Used to work in Morrison's, work at the play scheme, and then help my mum look after the younger siblings and help nurse my dad until he passed away.
See, I worked in a school. Yeah. I was a teaching assistant, but I worked in there, and compared to what because I was more like office-based jobs, and then from an office-based job it went straight to the school. It was a different environment, definitely. It was a bit harder. And because I had kids, I had my daughter, so it was like, I can't want to do a 9-to-5 job, I need to do where I get the holidays as well, term time. So when I worked there, it was totally different. So I can imagine what Mary Goff went through as well, you know. She was 13, I was a bit older than that.
I think the only thing that is hard now, for like, if you're a single mum, if your youngest child is 5, you have to go to work. And I find that very, very unfair, because if you're in a couple, the wife doesn't have to go to work. As long as one of them's working, you don't have to. And it's like, but it's not fair. Like after my dad passed away, I think the law was 14. As long as your child is under like 16 or something, and then they slowly started changing.
Yeah, went to 14 and then 11 and then 7 and now it's 5.
To 5, and it's like.
And it's soon going to 3, by the way.
Who's supposed to look after these children then?
They expect us to work.
So I think in that way, for mothers, single mothers especially, I would say it's a lot more harder. Like before, your child didn't have to be 5; they could be 16, and then you'd go get a job. And it's like, well, how do they expect these mothers to go work and look after the kids? And there isn't a lot of, everyone can't work in a school, can they? It's impossible.
No, everyone can't work in a school. And then obviously it depends where your work has travelled. But if you're not driving, you need to be back in time for the kids, especially when you've got the younger ones. So yeah, like when my dads used to work, they used to do the roll of school and everything. My dad worked in a glass factory, you see. Yeah, I still can remember him going to the glass factory. I used to make his lunch and everything. I still remember my mum couldn't do it, so I used to do it. But back in the days, we used to have this meter where you had to put money in to get your gas and electric. And then when what I used to do, not me, my brother, when he needed money, he used to open that and take money out of it. Take money out. And then my dad, he didn't used to take a lot, but he used to take one of them shillings out. I remember him taking it. And I go, you've just taken that out, I'm going to have to go and glass on you. No, I'll share it with you. I go, no, I don't want to share it either. So he used to take it out, and my dad found out that he used to take it, so he had to put a lock on it. But that's kids for you.
In the next clip, Rana and Salma talk about the connections they made between the project and their own experiences of living in Beeston. They discuss the importance of clothing for the suffragettes, weddings in their community, and touch on politics and campaigning.
My name's Salma. It's my birthday on Saturday. I'm going to be 36. I got married in Leeds. I'm from Milton Keynes originally, so about 13 years now. So I've got 4 kids. One's got special needs, 3 boys and a daughter. I'm okay. I'm settling in. I've got groups to go to. Yeah, I'm okay. I'm happy.
My name's Rana, and I'm originally from Birmingham, and I got married in Leeds, so a person from Leeds, so I moved down here, and I've got 3 kids, 2 boys and 1 girl. So boy is 21 and girl is 16, and another boy is 14, and I work part-time 7 days, and I come to this group which is socializing, meeting other girls and ladies, and quite enjoy.
We've been looking at history, Mary Gawthorpe, what's the other lady's name, but it's Beatrix, I think she said. We've been going to library.
You found out about Beeston, didn't you? Looked at the maps of Beeston.
Like old Beeston. Yeah. So we tried to connect with ourselves, like which streets we live in and where Mary Gawthorpe lived, just to some connections. And on the first or second session, we did like a big map. We wrote our name down. We tried to connect each other to something, like with kids, with school, with
things in common.
Things like that. So that was quite nice.
And how Beeston has changed, comparing to even the roads are, and some of the houses are not there as well.
Yeah. No. So it was a nice, good history, art lesson, geography lesson, all at once. It's nice. It's nice been working with this group.
We are when you get to it's just because of our family lives and our kids. I think that's what
we're so busy.
Yeah.
The last history we did probably was in school.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's just nice to revisit everything like this as a group. Yeah. It's been nice.
And we made a skirt, didn't we? And is it apron as well?
Apron and a skirt. And it's all coming together now, so it's quite nice.
Then on the apron, they put the roads. Actual
sketch into the skirt. Yeah.
We did a road. Is it? What did she say? With stamps onto
stamp signs our streets
of the street.
Your street.
Yeah.
Okay.
Streets, yeah.
And then that will go onto the apron.
Yeah.
We did the sewing, didn't we? What sewing? Oh, we
did
house.
We did our own houses.
We stamped. We used a stamp.
Yeah. Ink print. Ink print. Yeah. And then we sewed. That was quite nice, wasn't it?
Yes.
Decorate your own house and then make it into pockets. That was quite nice. Yeah.
I think that will go into the apron.
Yeah.
The houses we used. Threading,
embroidery. Yeah.
So we did go back to doing sewing.
Yeah.
With your hands, but you know.
But it wasn't too much. It was okay.
It was quite nice.
Yeah. We have to wear like a quite flowy clothes outside, and the suffragettes were wearing these big dresses, big coats. They even had hats on their head, just for respect maybe. For us it's a modesty, but I'm sure in those days maybe it was something like that similar.
Yeah. So they did have more flary
flowy dresses. Yeah.
It's more covered.
Yeah.
We didn't see.
No flesh.
Yeah. Where we were, we always have to have
some ankle covered. Yeah.
If we wear a dress on top, we'll have to have trousers on the bottom.
Right, okay.
Because like this one's a bit short.
Yeah.
So it covers.
For us it's a modesty, but I'm sure in those days maybe it was something like that similar.
So they did have more flary
flowy dresses.
Yeah. It's more covered.
Yeah.
We didn't see.
No flesh. We're still like quite family knitted, aren't we? We're like, you know, there's some roles that husband does, some roles that wife does, and we're looking after the kids as well. There is quite a lot of similarities. Yeah, I know we've got the digital side, but we've got the digital side to make it easier. Of course, it's making. In those days, there was none of that, but if they did, their lives would be a little bit
like
easier.
washing machine and things like that, where they had to wash their clothes, which is we don't have to do that. But we still have the responsibility.
Yeah, we do.
As a mom and like woman, as a woman. So.
Like having food, preparing food, we need to do that. We don't order takeaways every day, do we? Yeah.
And men do still feel things that so some men will go out to work, and some ladies will stay in our community, still stay at home and just be a housewife. And then some, will go out as well, and men. So where before, I think that's what
there's more equal opportunities. But as you're saying, it's right. Some women are still home. I'm home. So, and she's working, but it's part-time, it's not full-on job, part-time. So, our mums were so happy though in their job, weren't they? In their role. I mean, she's got a mum, and I haven't got a mum, but
I think it's a bit easier than our parents, isn't it? Do you find it's a bit easier, because our mum was like 24 hours in the house. They went shopping with their dad. And they were more like, dad went and picked the kids up, and then mum was, but our life is like, we share. Your husband went to shopping, you will go and pick your kids up.
Of course,
you drop them to mosque. You get me? I think I don't think it's not easy.
No.
Even I work 7 days. I still have to be home and cook and clean. Where my husband will help in terms of ironing, vacuum, but he wouldn't do the more. Do you get me? And I would know the running of the house, where my husband would just know the basics.
It's not easy, it's not hard, it's a bit of both. Even in those days, they were probably happy doing all that stuff. Like we are as well, and it does get hard. It really hard sometimes. We got our break here in the group. Some mums didn't have any of that.
I think, but they did socialize with the family more. Where because with our lives so busy, we don't see as family as much.
No, we don't do it.
Because before I could remember weekend and everything, my mom and dad would go to the family's house, leave the kids at home watching telly and everything when they're older. Where we find that after doing the housework and coming from work in the evening, I don't want to see nobody. I just want to sit down and just relax.
Just relax.
So I think that's it. And making time for families, because we're so busy with
we are so busy, and there's less time for families now. I think we were looking at this property where there was like 5 or 6 families living in one property.
Even she said, what's her name?
Which one? Mary Gotham.
She had a small. She had a small house, and then she struggled to. They had.
It wasn't their family. They shared houses with different families.
And she said 2-bedroom house. Like some people had 2 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms.
What they could afford.
And more. I think that time people had more kids. Ladies weren't allowed to vote. Was they?
I think this was a group that Mary formed, and she went out and did something about it. No,
so they didn't against it.
No. She come from her dad was an abused father, and then she got her mom out of the relationship. So that's something I found out. She said she had an abused dad, and then she stood up and she educated herself as to be primary school teacher. So she was the first one in her family too, and then she battled the education, wasn't it, for younger children. Studied at the same time and then worked at the same time to make to be a teacher.
She was very young, wasn't she?
Yes, and that's when she started to find the education for young children to be educated. Apparently there was no high school and primary school. Is it in the area or?
I can't remember probably.
Education was not as like now. Did they change themselves to the?
Yeah, they got.
I think the railing. We saw the picture. I don't know. I saw the picture.
Yeah, when we went to museum, they were talking about how the men became a bit violent towards them. They were and they started wearing protective gear. They started wearing lots of heavy dresses to protect them. Yeah, so there was things like that going on. We were talking about wedding presents because we looked at that. Because in those, we were looking at that sewing and stuff like that, and we were thinking about what we do in weddings and over the years,
how things have changed.
Yeah, how things are changing. Like, for example, I got gifted everything from kitchen stuff to bedroom stuff to lounge stuff. But now we're trying to say, even though that was a lot of money, that hasn't gone down because now it's not so much of furniture. It's more of money now.
If I came to your wedding, I'll just give you 50 quid, 100 pounds.
That is a lot of money.
Depending on how close you are. But usually if it's friend, it's about £50. You just put in a card and just that person. Before people would go buy
a gift,
a kettle, a toaster. You don't know. And nowadays they say on the card, on your wedding card invitation, please no box gifts.
They put it on the card so everyone's stuck.
Everybody doesn't know, because I got married as well. In 1997 I got married. So I still got a box gift and I'm still using my non-stick pan.
Okay.
That I everything got rid of it, but I don't know why I kept that. And I use that, and I use that for frying chicken. It's really heavy, and my kids go, "Is that what you had from wedding, mum?"
So it's less of the presents now, but more of money. Even a father, like my father, gifted all this, but when we did think about it in the future, they thought, rather than doing that, because we got married into extended family, so we lived with in-laws, rather than doing that, we should have saved for a deposit for her house and given it to her when she needed it. So, things like that we don't think about. And these days, what? Venues. So we have big families and extended families, friends, and you can't do it in the house. It's a big venue. The venue takes the money up. Forget the wedding, forget the couple as gifting each other.
Parents still give money for the bedroom.
Okay. Or they give the bedroom furniture, don't they? They have to give the bedroom furniture.
Usually, it depends on
food. It's expensive.
Yes.
It's very, very expensive. It's gone really expensive.
Because we don't know our numbers as well. When we give our invitation, people don't reply back. So we just go through guests. So you could be from 500 people in one day in that hall. So it can be, some people can have about 800.
But so you have to cater for that, even if 800 don't turn up. So it's crazy. Our weddings are crazy.
No, I think our kids' time, which will gradually get changed because people, it's expensive, isn't it? And they want to say, well, I gave you a card, you need to reply back.
But this is all cultural. There's nothing religious about this.
No.
Religion taught us to be modest, simple.
Yes.
It taught us just to say, just families, couples families.
You can have your mosque.
You
don't have to have the mosque is. You can have just a
very quiet ceremony at mosque.
Spend only £100, £200, and it's just your immediate family. You don't have to invite.
So this is nothing to do with our religion. This is all cultural. And just competition, isn't it?
Our kids is more into it than us. When we got married, you wouldn't know you wouldn't know who I'm getting married to. But now our kids would know who's getting married, what they're wearing.
It's all that social media, isn't it? As well. Social media. Really.
One way is quite good, one way is not. Because it's influence that person to say, I got to have this, I got to when I don't have any money.
In the following recording, Nazma talks about looking after her family and why she values Cushy Dill. Nazma also talks about how the group enables women who have moved to the UK from other countries to enhance their English skills and feel part of a real community. Nazma helps translate for other members of the group, Rashia and Sultana, who talk about their experience of participating in the project. The group then move on to discuss the changes that have happened to Beeston throughout their lives.
My name is Whitaker. I've been coming to this group probably about 10 years now because my young one, soon as he went into full-time education, then I started coming out again, because between my 3 kids, I stopped working, and so I was like a full-time mother, a housewife, basically all the jobs that we normally do when we're at home. Anyway, as soon as my small one went to full-time, that's when I went back into jobs. So I do like part-time on and off. So I've got like a lot of responsibility at the moment. So in between, like obviously before I come here, I go to my work and I come here, and then I've got my elderly parents that I look after as well. I'm doing stuff for them as well. So at this stage of my life, I can't do a full-time job because I'm like running backwards and forward with my kids, because I've got one in college, one in high school, one in primary school. So I'm like backwards and forward with their like meetings, you know, parents' evenings, school runs, stuff like that. And in the morning when I drop all my kids off, then I do like stuff for my parents, because they're elderly, they need help and stuff as well, like with shopping and stuff, or if they got doctor's appointments, I used to deal with them. And then this group is like a breath of fresh air, you know, when you just go out and just relax for a bit. It's not major anything that I come particularly to this group for, but it's just, you know, time out, come and relax and do different activities, whatever they get. So we've got a break now, and then I think we're going to do exercise, because we tend to have like in between we do like courses, between we have like exercise, because it's health for all. We try to be healthy. Sometimes we have like cooking session, and we try to do some healthy cooking and stuff like that. And then in between we have little courses.
My name is Sheikh Mukhtar Sultana. I joined a ladies group for 3 months.
Yes,
I learned. I went MB house with ladies group, and I went.
Kamu?
Nah, ada lagi.
Ada library. Nah, library.
Ada lagi.
Maka dulu.
I paint cotton. And I sewing, and I made a house. And
my name is Rashia Begum. I'm coming here regularly, like few years. So I like this group, exactly Tamina's health group. It's called Kushidil group. So I'm really happy with this group. I want this group will continue. So I'm learning different things, different types. Especially I'm learning this time Anne and Annie. So miracles. Before I don't know who is she, where she live, how she is. So now I know. I don't know everything, I'm not in everything understanding, but little bit, I'm really happy. So I told you, so this group continue going.
Basically, she likes this group because it's a Bengali group, which there's like half a dozen people there. It's like knows English, they've been brought up in this country, and half a dozen's like from abroad that's come to this country, so they've got like basic English language. So for them it's easier when other people does activities and courses in this group, because if they don't understand, like they've got other people from this country that's brought up here, it's easy for us lot to do the interpreting, find it more comfortable and happy in this group. Like if they went to a different group and there's like no one in like Bengali that's been brought up in this country and they don't know the language, they would find it more difficult. That's why they have more laugh and they understand more. So, and they've been doing like basic English courses as well, English language as well. So yeah, so we've done sewing. Like when I was in high school, right, I did technology as well, so I know my basics. And the skip core, I've done another skip core course before in school as well. We had this art class and we did a skip core stuff as well. So that was like quite similar to this one, but this one we did like more sewing and other stuff. But the other one was more like art and craft stuff. We did like a logbook like that, so it reflected similar to what we did before. So it's nothing new, but yeah, it was nice. you know, and most of the time I couldn't go to like libraries and stuff because obviously, like I say, I'm so busy with life and my work. So it clashes with work and things. So like when I do come, I just come for an hour. Like it's normally 2 hours in it. So I could be in between, and at the beginning and at the end I normally miss. So half of the time I didn't go to libraries and stuff to do the investigation. But it was nice. Obviously, I've been brought up here, so it's nice to know about Beeston. Basically how life was like before and now, and then how the street was like, how the building was like, and stuff like that. I think they went to the library and found out more stuff about it because obviously we didn't know nothing about it. I mean, I've been here all my life, but I would know like basic, but not much. So yeah, that's that. That's my little story. It does seem to hold me then, oh, I'm not quite that down. These lot, they haven't been here that long, so that's why, like, they haven't been here for that long, so it's not like exciting or.
Just one thing different, the Asian food, lots of supermarket, Asian shop, lots of halal food. Yeah. That is different, that is new.
Like for us, well, when I was a kid, it's like now, like all Temples Road here, right, you've got all the takeaways and stuff, takeouts now, and it's Asian takeout, you know, halal takeouts. So when I was little, there used to be like clothes shops and all the, you know, like little corner shops and stuff. Basically, when we was in Beeston, the only takeout shop we used to have is like fish and chip shop. Fish and chip shop, and then it's like clothes shop or like corner shops. We've never had like takeout, you know, fast food. Food's gone really fast, you know, 10, 20 years, 20, 25 years. It's grown so much, and like when we first came to Beeston, we probably just had that one Asian grocery shop, had one mosque. But now it's expanded so much. We've got so many. We've got like a couple of mosques in Beeston. We've got a few grocery Asian, you know, like, and we've got loads of Asian takeout. So I mean, it is advantage, but yeah, it's advantage from what we used to. Because like now I look back, half of the stuff people say, you know, like half the food wasn't halal, but we didn't know then. Because like we used to have like English supermarket. We never had Asian supermarket. And we didn't know what's halal or not. You know, like in certain food, you might have something or something else, but we don't know the code. Do you get what I mean? It could have a trace of pig, beef. Do you get what I mean? Like, it won't say pig on it. You know, like now we know more into it, but before we used to not know.
You just didn't like it.
Unless it didn't say bacon in it. So I suppose we'd bake or no. Yeah, realistically. Even fish and chips. Like, I didn't know, you know, like in them days we used to eat fish and chips, but people say it's pork dripping in it, they fry it in. Yeah, because you know the one in White Rose, there's one in pig, you know, something they were saying, or pig batter, something like that, which is not halal. And one in vegetable oil, I think it's pig droppings, pig fat or something, they fry it in. Anyway, when we got to fish and chip in White Road, you have to say you want the vegetarian one because they do. Yeah. So like that, we didn't know in them days. We used to just think fish and chips. Fish is allowed, so like that. You know all this crime that's going on in Beeston, right? The druggies, there's more knife crimes and stuff like that. Because I hadn't seen it with my eyes. I just hear these rumours. But for me, like in Beeston, it just seems, you know, we're safe, we're all right, and stuff like that. I know we hear loads of stuff going on, but I've actually not seen it with my eyes. Not that I want to see it with my eyes, but like crime itself in Beeston has rise. There's more druggies, there's more youngsters on the road, and there's more knife crimes and stuff like that. You know, nowadays youngsters, they just start little tiff and then they'll just pull out a knife and stabbing and stuff like that. You hear that and then you get scared to even let your kids out. And it's like I say, it depends on the kid as well. If they get into the bad crowd, even a good kid that's a bit about having kids and directed. There's so much you could push them in the right path, but if they get into the wrong crowd, you don't know. They might say, oh yeah, they're alright, but you don't know. As soon as they're outside the house.
In the final Cushy Dill interview, Amelia talks about the discoveries she made as part of the project that linked her children's school to the suffragettes and notes the difficulties in researching women from the past. Amelia links the challenges of the suffragettes to the plight of women today and the political issues we face in the UK.
Hello, I'm Amelia. I am from Malaysia. Yeah, I came to England like 1997, and then I came to Leeds 98. In Beeston, in Leeds, for like since I came. Yes, since I came to Leeds, I'm in Beeston, just around here. But hard thing is family is far away. I've been coming to this group for so many years now. It's called Kushidil at the moment, but before it's got different things, different names. Because when my children were young, I always come here, courses here going on, and then put it on Kati. I got like 3 children. My youngest is 10. I got 2 teenagers now. It's not easy. Beeston there's a lot of working men and women live in Beeston in the past, so that's why there's a lot of back-to-back houses. Yeah, last week Lana was talking about back-to-back houses. She came from Birmingham. When she came to Leeds, first time she saw the back-to-back houses, she was shocked. Why is a house like this? Because there's a lot of working people around in Leeds, Yeah, I don't even realize about that. When I live in Hull, when I came here, because I studied in Hull, I never seen the back-to-back house there. I don't know. This research is about suffragettes, and then one of the suffragettes live in Beeston called Mary Gothop, and then we found out that she taught at the St. Luke's Church School. It is the school where my children goes. Still one more, my little one's still there. So it kind of get me so, I'm interested to do research about this. Then I go around the school and took a lot of photos actually, because I want to see the old workhouse entrance where the new, the old school is at different side. Mary worked at the old building, yeah. It's just in opposite the church. But now the current school, they move it to nearby area, but it's on, actually the site was workhouse. They demolished the workhouse and then it's the school now. So, but they still kept the wall around it. When they demolished the old building, and then they took the what do you call this stone from the old school, and then brought it to the new school, leave it in front of the office area. I don't even realize I've been there more than 10 years. I don't even realize. I've seen it always, but I don't even realize what that is, because I've been talking to the staff in the office and then asking about this. So Mary Gothop, she was about 13 years old, very young. Yeah, she was a student at the school, and then she's teaching other students as well when she's still, a student. So she's really bright. And then she become involved in this movement, and then she becomes suffragette. Actually, my house, at the moment, we're renting quite near to the street where Mary Gothop used to live. Her house wasn't there anymore, but the street is gone. The street is still there. So we just thinking, it might be around here, We got some photos of the current road as well. Like this photo is behind the current new school. This is the entrance for the workplace. Yeah, it's just abandoned like that. They just keep it like that, and there's cobble walk. It's still there. Yeah, we look at the map, and then I found out what and where, which school, because there are a few schools that been demolished now. So I found out which part is, which side is the right school. So it's quite cool. Went to the library, and then the library staff taught us how to use the Leodis, and I think first time we're using this Leodis and all the library archive and all the old newspaper they put, quite interesting, all the old book. And then we got to tour the library, and then we go to the part where we saw the original wall inside. Nobody can see it. If you're not staff, you cannot go that way. Closed session. So all the maps, huge maps, so many of them. So from I don't know from what year they got, from maybe 1800. Oh gosh, quite interesting. All the old books. Quite hard to find the story online, because at first when we cannot find the information, it's quite hard. We've been trying to find the right name for the right person, but because there's so many Mary, and then in the same year there's so many Mary, so we don't know which one is right. And then towards the end, last week, our group member found out that they spell it different way. They put O instead of A. That's why we cannot find the information about her before. We got, luckily last week, I think last week or last 2 weeks, the member of staff found, our group member found the right, information with different spellings. So it's quite interesting. One of the lady called Mary Woodcock, we cannot find any information for her, about her in the library. We cannot find anything in the archive. But then we got information she lived at 65 Beeston Road, but we cannot find any photo or whatever. It was so hard to find it in library. We cannot even find it. I was like, at home, I was trying to find it in my phone, and then I found it, Luckily, I found it through my phone. And there's like a few sites they demolish the area and then build new housing nowadays, so it's quite hard to find the same, building. Yeah. One of the lady that we researched, Mary Woodcock, it's hard to find information about her in the internet, but she managed like few houses for the children, because she doesn't want the children to go to the workhouse to work when there's poorly, they're not properly clothed in cold winter and stuff, and then they have to work long hours. So she managed these houses around Beeston. She took all the tickets, and it's interesting, but we cannot find much information about her. It's hard. I think like years ago, women, because they have no rights to anything, they cannot even own any like building or whatever. So maybe that's why it's hard to find information about them. There will be a lot more that we don't know. We don't have information about them. Even though they did a lot of things, ladies from Beeston, our area, with charitable works and stuff, they did a lot. We don't have information about them. We did the house pattern thing to use the pen and like print block, what is it called? Yeah. So we just block printing. So I chose to do Malacca traditional house where I came from, called southern part of Malaysia called Malacca. So you can see suddenly there's one different, very, very different house from compared to the rest of the houses that the ladies did. Yeah. So they will sew into the apron. We sew in the skirt. But then because the skirt, we got so many things on it already going on, the strip and colors. So the calf, actually, one of the skipper staff, she sew us the apron. So we will sew our houses on top of the apron. There's one big sewing factory down at Dispute Road somewhere. It's closed, but I think the building's still there. Because Shanara worked there before. And then the ladies, when they were young, when they were around 9 years old, they went to Aisha to learn how to sew. I'm not good at sewing. I'm rubbish at sewing, but I like doing kind of art stuff, so yeah. I try my best. We've been making rosette when we started this in town. I can't remember where was it, Yorkshire House? In town? Was it Yorkshire House? I can't remember. The suffragette, when they go out, they will make sure everybody wear nice clothing they got at that time. So like they want to represent themselves as like, as best as they could. Yeah, they will wear like proper, not new, but very good like coat and glove and whatever, Not uniform for them, but they have to wear like nice clothing. Not like the one like old ones, no. They want to show that women, to say like, women have voice, kind of, Like, you can see that they wear like full, long clothes, long skirt. They covered most part of their bodies, to be modest. They will wear hat, everybody wearing hat. Everybody will wear hats. There's a lot about hijab going on. The ladies were talking. Like, actually, if you see the history, that before, women will wear veil. They even, nowadays Muslim wearing veil and it's a problem. But years ago, everybody wearing it. But what makes it different nowadays is the way media present it to the world. And a lot of people believe whatever came out from the media, and it's not 100% true. And there's a lot of people being affected by this, like Muslim, still going on, issue with Muslim wearing scarf, wearing hijab. Even the Prime Minister saying like Muslim women wearing veil like post balls. That's the Prime Minister, current one. That's a shame. There's a lot of people listen to that, especially the right wing. It's quite sad because it's not true. It's portraying differently from what the women are, because we're not being forced to, this is our choice. We want to wear it because we follow our religion. To be modest, this is how we wear. Not every Muslim wear hijab. Like, if we look, suffragette, years ago, they fight for women's rights. And nowadays, we're fighting the same thing, kind of. But not about voting, but like how we live, like the way of our life, being like people find it's difficult to accept. It's not like we're disturbing them, we're just wearing our clothing, being modest, and it's kind of seem like they're fighting for their voice. We're fighting for our voice as well. At that time, of course, the men doesn't like it. No, that's why the suffragette. They've been put in jail. They've been everything. They just want to wipe them out. Politicians back then, they don't want this movement to go on. They just want to stop it, right? I think because like now, this country about Brexit, people are fed up nowadays. Politicians, they're just rubbish. The other day I was reading the news, one of the billionaires saying, if I got the power, I will sack all the politicians. I was saying, that's true. Because they're not really, they got paid a lot of money, but look what happened now. We are in mess. Our economy is really going down because of Brexit. Massive, because all our stuff in the shop is more expensive now. Even cars or whatever will be affected, all the price will go up. I'm kind of worried about how people are going to spend or, afford to buy stuff in future because of this. If it's not being sorted quickly,
The following audio recordings are taken from my time spent with the Moore Allerton Elderly Care Group, otherwise known as Maycare. The group works with people over 60 across Leeds. The following clips feature reflections from June, Eugenia, Ian, Heather and Margaret.
The Maycare Group were a fun, friendly, chatty group who met at their space in Moore Allerton. They enjoyed sharing memories and stories. Initially, they began by thinking about famous inspirational women and suffragettes, but very quickly it turned to stories about their mothers, their relatives, and their own stories too. They found common links between them, such as women working hard but still not having the right to a mortgage, or being able to get on a company pension scheme, or even buying furniture on hire purchase in their own name. They had to get their husbands to do it for them. They also found other commonalities in the groups through sharing their stories, such as working at Braze and other engineering companies, tailoring, and war-related work in local factories. Things really came together after a trip to Abbey House Museum. Many local and historic women were discussed and how they'd overcome hardship and difficulties, but survived and strived to achieve more settled and comfortable lives for their families. Great changes had been made, and the work, achievements and influence of ordinary women were evident and powerful, and it really brought home how important their own stories were. Throughout the storytelling, the group experimented working with a range of different art mediums to help visualise their stories. They finally created anonymous 3D faces in felt and rosettes and used it as a base to explore their ideas. They printed photographs and words onto fabric and embellished these with needle felting and embroidery techniques before attaching these onto their felt. These results can be seen with the lovely, large, powerful textile-based rosettes and framed collages, illustrating the very powerful stories of some extraordinary women.
In this clip, June reflects on an inspirational woman in her own life, her mother-in-law Irene Harris.
Irene Harris was born in Rotherham. At 3 years old, her parents separated. Her father, Henry, discovered his wife, Alice, was having an affair. Father and daughter travelled around the country. Henry worked wherever he could, sleeping in old brick kilns to keep warm. At 7 years old, Irene contacted typhoid. With no money and no permanent abode, her father was at a loss to know what to do. Fortunately, Romany travellers welcomed them both, living in traditional wooden caravans. They paid Irene's doctor's fees. Recovered, father and daughter travelled the length and breadth of England with the Romanis. In 1919, through financial circumstances, Irene and her father returned to Rotherham to live with Henry's sister, who sponsored her to attend a local church school, which lasted just 6 weeks. Unfortunately, Irene was seen in the small community and told Alice, who contacted the police who arrested her. Irene never saw her father again. Alice put her daughter in the workhouse, where Irene stayed for 3 years and put to work. If she was late for work, she was stripped naked, hosed down with ice-cold water and beaten with a belt, leaving scars for the rest of her life. This happened regularly. In 1922, Irene was released under the auspices of her mother and immediately sent to work. There was no affection between mother and daughter. At the age of 15, Irene, now in Leeds, considered going to Canada, but changed her mind at the last minute. She was employed in domestic work, having to send most of her money home to her mother. In 1927, she met Sidney Ryder and married in 1939. After a long courtship, during the war, Irene was consigned by the government to work in Blackburn's aircraft factory and taught skills in engineering. During the period of the war, Irene became pregnant with her first child. Sadly, on the way to work, she lost the baby, a girl, at 8 months. There was no type of maternity leave during the war and had to return to work 3 days later. Refusal meant prison. Towards the end of the war, 1945, she gave birth to a boy, Sidney Ryder, my dearly loved husband.
In the following audio, Eugenia reflects on her time working at Joseph Watson's. Whilst working at this factory, Eugenia inspired the workers to produce new artwork. In addition, Eugenia innovated the production line and helped increase the factory's sales.
The factory was Joseph Watson's. Well, I started working there when I was about 17. Right, new from the Polish boarding school, college rather, and they didn't know that much English. So I used to bring a little bit of handwork to the factory, so that at lunchtime, instead of talking, struggle with talking, I used to crochet or embroider or knit, whatever. And one of the supervisors used to pop in and admire my work. And he always used to say that I waste my talents, in fact. And she asked, well, she sort of said, the work I do, it's all very pretty, looks nice. I must have won quite a few prizes. And I didn't quite understood what she said, so I asked her more about the explain, and she says, on the show, right, then other people gave work of their own, and so mine must have won because I do quite pretty work. So I said, no, no, no. So how about us starting an art and craft exhibition? So I shrugged my shoulders. I thought, well, if you expect me to do it, I know nothing about it. If you want to do it, well, go ahead. And she went around and asked other workers if they were willing to submit some work of their own. And everybody thought it was a good idea, so they all were. Even men were entering items like rug making from the cut-out cloth, old cloth, some woodwork or whatever. And of course my work as well. And there were quite a selection of submission and all that, and that's how they started, and they were doing that every year while I was there. So after about 2 years, they have moved me to Hudson and Knight, which was all the office, typing, accounts and all that, mail, handling. So they put me there as a filist with my poor English. But I couldn't do much work at work, my own work, because I had quite a lot to do with the letters and filing and all that business. Yeah. But I used to do at home and carried on submitting my work. And yes, everybody was happy, and I won quite a few prizes.
And what was your prize in the end?
Oh, it was £3.
£3.
But at that time, my weekly wage was £5. Yes,
yeah.
That's what it was worth. Well, I enjoyed working anyway, so it was nice to know that I enjoyed the work, and I got some money for it.
Yeah.
The factory was Joseph Watson's. When I started working there, the girls used to talk more than do the job. And toothpaste and carded was going down to the end of the conveyor belt and get jammed, which I couldn't pack. And so one day, the toothpaste kept coming down in piles, and I refused to pack. So I asked the machinist to stop the machine. And she said, I'm not allowed. I said, well, you either stop it or have more waste, because the girls are not doing their job properly. So the main manager came and he asked what was the problem, what's going on. So, of course, the manager said, right, move all this toothpaste away, everything, all this waste, put away. Now start machine, and every girl's supposed to take her own share off. They were all coming with the nice and flat and with writing the same way, so it was so easy for me to pack. I could take 3 boxes at a time and put in a bigger box. 3 months after, the chairman asked us to gather in the canteen, and he congratulated us that we have made £30,000 profit in 3 months, reducing the waste and speeding the work as well, and all that. So they were very happy, but they never mentioned my name, that it was because of me.
In this reflection, Ian discusses his research surrounding Lillian Mary Sutton and why researching women in history has been a particularly interesting yet challenging experience for him.
My project that I've chosen to do is about a lady that worked at George Bray and Company in Leeds, where my mother worked during the Second World War. And the name of the person I'm doing is Lillian Mary Sutton. An unusual spelling of Lillian, because there's only one L in the middle. She, in 1946, the year after the end of the Second World War, she did receive a CBE for war work. And at that time she was chief chemist in George Bray and Co. And George Brays were experts in using ceramics in engineering. And during the war they made things like ceramic cores for resistors, for radio sets that were used in aircraft, and I believe from some of the paperwork I've seen that they were also involved in making fuses for artillery shells and naval shells, and it may be for that the work that she did on that Lena May Sutton got the CBE. She was, unusually for a woman at that time, the chief chemist at George Bray, and in 1946 had been the chief chemist for 14 years, although she'd worked for the company for 20 years since her graduation. She was born round about 1902, so she would have been about 44 when she got the CBE. Finding anything out about her other than what I've just said has proven quite difficult, and one thing we've discovered doing this project is that it's far more difficult to find out about females than it is for males in similar occupations, and that's maybe because females change their name when they get married and things like that, but I think also that better records were kept of the achievements of men than of women. But it's a project that I'm keeping on with, and there are some records in the archives at Morley, which are still on paper and not on computer, so I intend to look at those and see if we can find out more about her.
In this clip, Heather reflects on her inspirational Auntie Gracie, who worked as a midwife in Ireland.
My Auntie Grace, who died earlier this year, was 104 when she died. She was still living at home, although she did have carers coming in. She'd had a long and varied life. She was a midwife. She trained as a nurse, and then she became a midwife. And at that time she was cycling around the countryside, checking up on babies, delivering babies. She also delivered my cousin, who is called Grace after her, which has been a bit confusing in the family, because of course when you mention Grace it could be either one of them. While she was cycling around, she met my uncle, who became her husband obviously, and he was a farmer. And then they got married. They had 4 children. The youngest 2 were twins. They weren't identical. One was a boy, one was a girl. Marrying a farmer, she had a very busy life being a midwife and also helping with the farm. It was mainly a dairy farm, so there was cows to milk, and that was a bit more difficult in those days than it is in these days. There's a lot more mechanical things around these days than there were then. So they lived in a little village, which nowadays, several years later, obviously is a lot bigger village. So it was somewhere that everybody knew everybody else. So my aunt ended up delivering babies from girls who she had delivered as babies themselves. So it was really quite a community. My aunt was one of 7. She was my father's brother. So there were 4 girls first, and then 3 boys. And she was the 3rd girl, the 3rd oldest out of 4. But her feet were bigger than the eldest and the next eldest, so she ended up, as she says, her feet always caused her a problem, because she was ending up with shoes being passed down that were really too small for her. But obviously there were 7 in the family, so there obviously wasn't a lot of money to go around. But she always mentioned these feet. Otherwise she was in very good health. She walked with a stick, but that was all. She was very sprightly. Her memory started to go a bit, just forgetting things, so we used to have to phone her up to say what day I was going to see her, and then phone her up in the morning to make sure she realised I was still going to go, and so that she was ready for me. But her long-term memory was very good. I always liked visiting her, because she'd always got things from the past to look at, like scrapbooks and old cuttings out of newspapers from well before I was born, so that was really interesting, and she'd always got stories to tell about things. It's amazing that she lived to 104, and until the last few months she was still very active, able to look after herself and everything. So they were just carers coming in the morning. All they did really was light the fire and make her a sandwich for lunchtime, and then or tea time, depending what she wanted. And then she used to have a microwave meal. She was a very good cook and very good at knitting and sewing. So I've got a hat that she knitted. I've still got that. Until the last 2 or 3 years, we were still making marmalade and jam and doing bits of gardening. So I was still knitting till a couple of years ago as well. So I think she's very active and very life, and I was very fond of her.
In this final recording from the May Care group, Margaret reflects on 3 generations of women in her own family: her mum, herself and her daughter.
Well, my mum is a Geordie by birth, but moved down in the general strike when she was 9-year-old to Doncaster, where her family were miners. She then came to work in Leeds as a chambermaid at the Great Northern, where she met my father, who was a wine waiter there. Throughout the war, we kept a small holding, so we had to send eggs to the packing station. We had hens, ducks, geese, pigs, a goat and a horse, well, a pony. And as I said, we had to send eggs to the packing station, but also we could kill a pig a year for our own consumption. We sent it to the slaughterhouse and then cured it at the farm. And then throughout the war, my mum ran that while my dad continued working, because he'd been in the First World War. He was 29 years older than my mum, and in the First World War he got shot and said his tin hat saved him because it deflected the bullet round behind his ear. And he was sent to Newcastle Hospital, which I presume was a mental institution, but that's where head cases went in the war. And my mum was born there in 1918 in Newcastle, I mean, not in the mental health. When I was 10, I've got a sister who was 9. There's just 15 months between us. My mum decided that she had to go back out to work in case I passed what then was the Junior City, the scholarship for high school, because the school uniform cost £30. And, you know, my mum's housekeeping was £5 a week for everything.
It's very expensive, isn't it?
Yeah. So she then worked in as an assembly hand in an electrical factory for the next 17 years till it closed down, and then worked in another factory as an assembly hand until retirement. And she died in the year 2000, aged 82. And funnily enough, I left school after O-levels, as did my youngest daughter. Well, they both did. But my youngest daughter and I did A-levels together when I was 59. And then she went on to do a full-time degree and a PGCE teaching. I did a part-time degree and got a history degree in 2008 when I was 66.
The following recording is from participants who come from the Caring Together group. Caring Together is a local neighbourhood network scheme providing activities, advice and practical support to people over the age of 60 in the Woodhouse and Little London area. They provide support, advice and lots of fun activities, groups, trips and outings for their members.
The Caring Together group are based in the Little London and Woodhouse areas of Leeds. The Woodhouse Community Centre, where the group meet, has a room named after Doreen Tinker. But why? Who was Doreen Tinker? This inspired the group to focus on commemorating the often unsung, forgotten and inspirational women of Leeds, such as Doreen Tinker, Julia Bingham, Beryl Burton, Gertrude Poole, Vesta Victoria, among others. We started with suffragette Mary Gawthorpe, who was born in Woodhouse. Some of the group researched maps from 1911 to present day, charting where group members have lived and how the area and street names have radically changed. Another line of inquiry was related to the importance of soap making to the area and discovered the origins of the phrase soap opera. The research is outlined within the accompanying book, along with information relating to the inspirational women. The group experimented with animation technique of pixelation and created an animated soap opera in the style of the silent movies that Mary Gawthorpe may have watched at the Electric Picture House near her birthplace. The group also created animated portraits of themselves and the key figures from their research and projected these onto 2 plaster busts as part of the exhibition. A trip to Abbey House Museum provided inspiration for the animated soap opera, with a storyline of Mary is interrupted from her life of housework by a time traveller who invites her to visit the Caring Together group. She has so much fun she eats all their biscuits. Her rebellious spirit is kindled and she returns to her own time, where she commands her vacuum cleaner to work by itself. The film Caring Soap is featured in the exhibition and also on this DVD.
In this recording from Caring Together's Alistair and Pat, we hear how Alistair and Pat first came to be involved in the group and about Caring Together's contribution to the project. Pat then tells us more about the origins of Caring Together and the really interesting role of her family in the Fireproof Safes business in Leeds.
Well, I just came into this, it's all through through being hospitalised, oddly enough, that back in the summer of 2017, ended up over quite a short period of time that I suddenly lost my ability to sort of live an independent life, I think is the way to put it, and go to see social workers and so on. Eventually is sent off to St James's Hospital and they're conducting tests and so on. Anyway, so eventually, after being in hospital for quite a while, and then to the Richmond House Recovery Hub, so it's rehoused, and so it's reckoned that should go to, being on a second floor flat anyway, so it's go to a ground floor flat. Anyway, so the point of all this is they ended up in Lovell Park, and so in Little London, and so came in contact with Caring Together for Little London Woodhouse, and so this is in just 2019, and so courtesy of that I came to contact Caring Together, and through the one of the activities was linked to the Skipco's Women Reflecting on Women project. And despite not being a woman, it's decided that it would allow men to take part as well. And so one way or another became involved in the activities. But so it's something I don't imagine that I've come into contact with at all in all sorts of cross affairs. It's entirely through being hospitalised, basically. But I ended up in this situation anyway, so it's all been very interesting, and getting out into it's quite a remarkable project. It's expanded my horizons, shall we say.
Well, Lisa got in touch with me about this project because she knows I like writing, and I've not had a lot of contact for the last few years, but at one point I was the chair of Caring Together, and in 2008, in the financial crisis, we ran out of funds, so I thought the best thing would be if the person who is now chair, if she took over, because I was rubbish, and I took over one of the groups, So I ran this group in Little London, which was 5 ladies from St. Kitts and 1 local lady. And more or less the day that we started, Obama was elected. And so I pulled out images from, I read The Guardian, so we had these pictures all over, stuck all over the windows, and we had cake and fruit juice and all sorts, and we celebrated that. Now, the Afro-Caribbean ladies at Caring Together, I could never get them to talk about what happened in 1961 when they came, which was terrible, because they said they didn't like to be ungrateful. But anyway, because of this, people started talking about the history of racism. And so they just talked and talked and talked. And I gathered those up into some of their life stories, which I called The Grandmas of Little London. And that's one of the things which is available somewhere as part of this project. So this was a kind of extension, really. This was finding out more about this area, only in a more kind of, not an angry way, in a happier way. I've enjoyed the library section. I've written the Doreen Tinker piece. I enjoyed going to the printing session, which only a couple of us went to, because we went to a printing works, letterpress, sorry. I just enjoyed it all, really. It's very diverse, because I tend to just get stuck in and either read or write or do the garden. And I have, become very narrow in my interests. So I think this is what you find most of the members found this, that it just took them into things that they'd not thought about before. So I wasn't, I'm not very good any longer at crafts. And the image of me I didn't do because I couldn't see well enough to trace the photograph. Because what they did, they took a photograph of each of us and then held that up against the window, and you could trace through it. But I couldn't see well enough because I can't stand bright lights. So my picture isn't by me. So the head, arranging the head, I didn't have much to do with that because I was wandering around asking various people about Doreen Tucker, who's the person I wrote about, because she was a pretty extraordinary woman who'd done an awful lot of meddling in people's lives.
So she was known as Mrs. Woodhouse, is that right?
Mrs. Woodhouse, yeah. I didn't put that in, actually. Yeah. I went to university very late, when I was 30. And I did social science. So one of the things that interested me about Woodhouse and Caring Together is Doreen Tinker, as I understand it, was a very sociable drinking lady who went to the place which is now called TJ's Club, where one of her brothers ran it, I think. And she would do all this stuff for anybody, and run around and have a great time. But the people who set up Caring Together came from different churches. And I have a feeling that, there was not a lot of agreement between them. There was a representative from, they're called the Soroptimists, for instance, who are middle-class business women And I know the person now through another group. And she had no idea what Caring Together was about, but she was nominated and she was put on there. And there was a Methodist woman who was very good, ran different groups. There was a church of, I'm not sure, but he was Protestant, a clergyman. I don't know which church because he was American. So, and his wife was very much to do with the setting up. I'm rambling, but there was quite a different impetus to set up Caring Together itself than what Doreen Tinker had been doing. To my astonishment, I've been in Leeds for a bit more than 20 years now. I was old when I got here.
Sort of half a century.
to help look after grandchildren who were now over 30. One of them is. So, yeah.
One of the main features of our thing, from my point of view anyway, was the soap opera, and so we had a bit of fun doing that. Just Mary Gawthorpe being visited by the spirit of the future.
The soap opera was really good because we kept bringing in these differences, didn't we? You know, the soap adverts we used to have to, we were supposed to think about comparing soaps.
Yes, because the basic notion was to start with around suffrage, to celebrate the 100th anniversary of women getting the vote in 1918. So, updating, bringing all the way up from West Victoria to modern day entertainers.
Yeah.
So we did a focus on. It's kind of So with animations, somehow it's hopefully getting matched up with the photographs. And somehow slotted in the pictures that are taken off the internet of showing the suffrage. So it's but how all this fits together, it's a mystery, really.
You know, perhaps another project, the life of the mill girls, so-called mill girls, because the mills were at the bottom, they were along the beck, and the housing was further up the hill. And my great-grandfather used to sell fireproof safes, and he's written books, and there's a whole lot of stuff about what a difference it made for him when workers started to move away from where they worked because they used to listen for burglars. But when they were far away, it needed very good fireproof safes, and of course he could make them. And so his, supply went right up.
So the stress on fireproof was because mills had a habit of burning down, I guess?
Yes, it had to be both thief-proof and fireproof. Fireproof was very difficult because if you stuffed the gap between the in and the out part of the safe, if you put all sorts of just rubbishy stuff in it, that would let off steam, and the steam would melt what was ever in the safe.